Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this week's episode of AI and the Future of Work. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, and this is an unconventional episode, but these are unconventional times. Today's topic is deeply personal, and I think it's important and incredibly relevant for work and our ability to influence whatever it is that comes next. It's a confusing time for all of us. There's just no way to comprehend the magnitude of what's happening right now. We are in the vortex. We're flattening the curve, and that's the good news. But as we flatten one, we're bending another. We're changing the arc of history. This time, right now, this small window will define our generation. This week, I'm recording to you from Quarantino, California. I'm sharing what's been going through my head as I try to make sense of what's happening to me, to my family, our community, and all of us around the world. No interview this week. We'll get back to those next week. Today you're stuck with my voice, sharing my introspection. Maybe it's a therapy session and maybe you never meant to join it. If so, I'm sorry. But maybe, just maybe, it's an invitation to you to put into words what you're going through and how it feels. As I speak to you on Saturday, the 11th of April, 34% of the world's population is sheltering in place. 2.6 billion people have had their lives upended. We're flattening the first curve while preparing for the second, which will manifest itself in the form of mental health issues that will lead to productivity loss and absenteeism on a scale the world has never experienced. According to the World Economic Forum, people who are quarantined are very likely to develop a wide range of symptoms of psychological stress and disorder, including insomnia, stress, anxiety, anger, irritability, and emotional exhaustion. It comes as no surprise. How we prepare and respond is so critical. Like you, I'm trying to make sense of what the pandemic means for my family, but also for organizations, for communities, societies, humans, and most germane to this discussion, for the future of work. Well, here we are 5 weeks into the quarantine. Personal protective equipment is sadly at an all-time low, but human creativity and ingenuity are thankfully at an all-time high. For some, isolation has made us sad or angry or just a little stir-crazy. For others, it has provided a platform for fixing what was broken before. Things like class inequality, gender bias, a fragile healthcare infrastructure, and weak or sometimes non-existent mental health resources. The situation has made us scared, but it has also reminded us that we're compassionate, resilient, and united by our differences. The pandemic has had a similarly profound impact on organizations. Strong ones are using the lull to reinvent themselves, reimagine their roles in the global economy, and reawaken their souls. Seeing amazing teams in every industry bond and build together is a real source of inspiration. We're ripping apart and restoring the connective tissue of supply chains overnight. Supply chains that have been built up over a period of decades, if not centuries. Hotels are becoming hospitals. Rocket plants are making ventilator valves. Waiters aren't waiting for restaurants to reopen. Chefs aren't stewing over boarded bars. So many are asking the only question that matters: how can I help? What organizational psychologists call the structural functional systems theory basically says how effective organizations should communicate in terms of crisis. Kind of academic, but it's more relevant than it ever has been. And it's being tested everywhere in real time. More than ever, hope is not a strategy. Leaders are convening their global teams more frequently and sharing updates more openly than ever. We're using powerful new technology to beam pets and families into meetings in one amazing global daily celebration of our humanity. We're using tools like online polls and interactive learning platforms to make it easier to innovate and get to know peers we'd never meet otherwise. I'm sure we all have a story from friends or colleagues about how something changed in the last few weeks, and they got to know each other a little bit better. Work has never been less mundane. Routines have never been less routine. The future of work is more of this. Think less about Sisyphus rolling that boulder uphill, and more about the Wright brothers or Amelia Earhart about to take flight. We often think of organizations as machines, and of us as rotors and pistons powering the engine, an engine we don't control. It's time for a new metaphor. In light of the creative destruction we've seen over the past few weeks, it's time to think of organizations as organisms, living beings with unique and incalculable cognitive power to adapt to change. We're not cogs. We're organs pumping creative ideas that nourish the body and fuel growth. Days may seem long and dark, but we're learning lessons in real time that will forever change who we are and what it means to be vital parts of complex living systems. Now's the time to challenge the status quo. Now's the time a generation of leaders and a generation of transcendent organizations will emerge. Large organizations like Ford and Microsoft are evolving rapidly, but so too are small ones. I'll give you a couple examples. Our local improv group, the one that my wife performs with, now performs weekly live shows online. And they've introduced props and skits that just didn't work before. My daughter's theater group is preparing to stitch together video of each individual actor performing their lines and their songs into the first fully virtual production of Guys and Dolls. Talk about necessity being the mother of invention. Out of chaos, we're turning can't into must, and we're doing it every day. I'm inspired by what's happening on a global scale. The human toll is beyond words, and nobody asked for this global pandemic. Yet we're learning and living and thriving. And the impact of what's happening right now will change work and play for the next 1,000 years. It's a cliche that's more appropriate than ever. The toughest steel is forged in the hottest fire. So my advice, be amazing, be creative, be the change you've always wanted. One thing I'm more confident of than ever, we will be stronger on the other side. Well, that's what I wanted to share this week. Like I said, deeply personal, but something that I felt is germane to the topic of AI and the future of work, and something that will hopefully stimulate a conversation or maybe help you to do your own introspection. Please react in the comment section of this episode. As always, I'd love to hear from you. Or DM me at dturchin, DTURCHIN, on Twitter. I'd love to know how you're making sense of what's happening, how you're coping, leading, thriving, or just getting by. We'll be back next week with another interview with an amazing guest. Thanks for listening.